Today, we're jumping into some source material that lays out a pretty shocking scenario for the United States in 2026. It asks if the country could be careening towards a major civil conflict. And believe it or not, it all starts with a Hollywood movie. Let's get into it. So, you might remember the movie Civil War from 2024, which showed this terrifying vision of a divided America. Well, the source material we're looking at today argues that this work of fiction is starting to look a lot like fact in 2026. It all boils down to one central, chilling question. What kind of American are you? Because the source suggests your answer could literally be a matter of life and death if you run into federal agents.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we first have to talk about ICE. That's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, on paper, its mission is pretty clear-cut. They're supposed to enforce immigration laws, find and deport people who are in the country illegally. That's the official story.
But, and this is a huge but, the source we're examining paints a completely different picture. It claims that ICE has transformed into something else entirely. According to this material, the goal isn't law enforcement anymore. It's straight-up intimidation. And that claim is really what kicks off the entire conflict we're about to unpack. So, you're probably wondering, where does this incredibly harsh assessment come from? Well, the source points to one single event that it says was the spark that lit the fuse: the killing of a 37-year-old mother named Renee Nicole Good. This event, it's argued, is what caused the nationwide outrage. All right, let's walk through the timeline of what the source says happened. It's the morning of January 7th, 2026. Renee Good is just driving home after dropping her daughter off at school, a totally normal day. But then she has an encounter with some ICE agents. Things escalate and fast. An agent, identified as Jonathan Ross, fires 3 shots right into her face. The source then claims that video shows other agents on the scene actually preventing medics from getting to her to help. And this is where you see 2 completely different stories emerge. On one hand, you've got the official government line. They're calling the shooting justified self-defense, even labeling Good a domestic terrorist. But on the other hand, you have what the source calls the public perception, which is apparently based on video showing an unarmed mother just driving away when she was shot. 2 totally conflicting realities. Now, according to the source, this incident wasn't just some tragic, random event. No, it's presented as a key piece of a much bigger, much scarier puzzle, what the source calls an authoritarian playbook, one designed specifically to hold on to power. And to back this up, the source makes a really startling historical comparison. It actually compares the role of ICE in 2026 to the Nazi Party's brown shirts back in 1920s Germany. The allegation is that just like the brown shirts were used to stir up chaos to justify Hitler's rise, ICE is now being used as a private army to provoke the American public, especially in places that are politically opposed to the administration. So what is this alleged master plan? Well, the source breaks it down into 4 pretty clear steps. Step 1, use ICE's actions to make the public furious and get them out on the streets protesting. Step 2, let those protests get bigger and wilder, creating a full-blown law and order crisis. Step 3, use that chaos you just created as the perfect excuse to declare martial law. And the endgame, step 4, cancel or postpone the midterm elections and stay in power. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That is a huge claim. Is there any actual evidence to support this theory? Well, the source argues that the administration has been sending signals, and it points to a couple of specific slogans that have popped up in public. The first thing the source points to is this slogan, "One of ours, all of yours," which was apparently displayed right behind the Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, the source claims this isn't just some tough guy motto. It's a phrase that has a deeply disturbing history, one that's all about collective punishment. And here's the connection they make. They link it directly to what the Nazis did after one of their top officials, Reinhard Heydrich, was assassinated. As revenge, they didn't just go after the killers. They completely destroyed an entire village, Lidice. They killed all the men and sent the women and children to concentration camps. So the argument here is that this slogan is a direct throwback to that fascist ideology. All right, the second piece of evidence they bring up is a tweet, this one from the U.S. Department of Labor. At first glance, it looks, well, kind of generically patriotic, right? One homeland, one people, one heritage. But the source insists that the specific choice of words here is no accident. And why is this tweet so significant? Because the source claims. It's almost a word-for-word copy of the infamous Nazi slogan, Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, which translates to one people, one empire, one leader. The argument being made is that this isn't some coincidence. It's a deliberate and chilling reference to an authoritarian past. So, with all of this happening, all these alleged provocations, how did the public react? Well, the source details a massive pushback, framing it as a kind of grassroots defense of democracy against what's seen as this major power grab. And this resistance, it wasn't just one thing. We're talking huge street protests in big cities like New York, Chicago, and Minneapolis. People holding banners demanding justice for Renee and wanting ICE out. There were calls to arrest the agent involved, Jonathan Ross, and even to defund the agency entirely. The source even mentions loud, disruptive protests happening right outside the hotels where ICE agents were staying. And what's adding even more fuel to this fire is the human cost happening inside the system itself. The source makes a point to highlight that over 30 people died in ICE detention centers just last year, with another 4 deaths in the first 10 days of 2026 alone. This is used to argue that the problem is way bigger than just one shooting.
So, after breaking all of this down, we're left with the really powerful question at the heart of this source material. It paints this picture of an administration allegedly creating a crisis just to stay in power, and a public that is rising up in response. And it forces you to ask, if the institutions we rely on start to fail, is it up to the people, and only the people, to be the last line of defense for a democracy?